Welcome to the Finance Marketing Podcast, a show that empowers finance professionals to market their businesses in ways that feel good and actually achieve results. I'm your host, Hillary. I've been working with folks in financial services to develop marketing strategies that work and create results-oriented marketing content since 2020. And I've learned a lot about what works in finance marketing, what doesn't work, and where financial services pros get stuck. Join us each Friday as we explore real, effective ways to market your finance business and connect with folks who truly embody your ideal clients. Hey listeners, it's just Hillary here today with you. If you are listening to this around the time that the episode dropped, it is currently the day after Christmas, and this time of year, especially this week in particular, the week between Christmas and New Year's, is one of my favorite times of the year because it's a time where I do a ton of reflection. I have a specific set of reflection questions that I go through every single year. I've been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 years now, and it's really fun to look back on the last few years and see kind of how my answers have changed and evolved. I have another set of questions that I like to do on New Year's Day that is forward looking and kind of planning for the year ahead and setting intentions. And it's just really fun. And so with that in mind, today I wanted to do a little bit of a look back at some of the best episodes that I recorded on the podcast in 2025 with a little bit of a roundup. So this year was the first full year that I have been running the podcast. I started officially in March of 2024. So we're coming up on 2 years soon, but 2025 was the first full year that I had in the podcast. We are over 90 episodes now, which feels like kind of a big milestone for me. So that's really exciting. And so I wanted to really just take some time today to celebrate that and celebrate the conversations that have really shaped a lot of the way that I think about marketing now, that I have learned so much from not only the other marketing experts that I've had on the podcast, but the advisors and the coaches who are running their businesses and marketing their businesses. I have just learned so much from them as well about what's working for them, what's not working for them, what unique things they're trying. And it's just been so educational, both for me and I hope for you as well. So I'm going to walk you through the 5 most listened to episodes from this year. I'll just kind of cover them a little bit briefly if you haven't heard them yet. They were very popular. I highly recommend. And then I'm also going to share my 5 personal favorite conversations from the year. So without further ado, let's dive in. Let's talk about the episodes that shaped the Finance Marketing Podcast in 2025. So when I went into my podcast analytics, I have to say a couple of these surprised me a little bit. So I'm going to start with number 5 and work backwards. Number 5 was how to build a content marketing strategy that actually generates clients with Kaylee Roberge. Now, Kaylee and her husband, Eric, they're a husband-wife team. Eric owns Beyond Your Hammock, which is a fee-only financial planning and wealth management firm. And Kaylee and Eric are actually former clients of mine. Me and my team and I were able to support them with content creation when their daughter was home with Kaylee, and she was really little, and Kaylee just wasn't able to keep up with all of the content that she is used to creating for Beyond Your Hammock. So I was really delighted to have Kaylee come on and share the behind the scenes of what their content marketing strategy entails, what the actual results are that they get from their strategy, how much content they actually create, how things have changed for them, over the past really year to 3 years. She talked about how they've seen organic search traffic really declining because of AI taking over search, but their qualified leads have stayed steady. So they're getting less traffic, but they're still converting what they're used to converting, which she and I both feel is quite promising. She talked about how they're shifting from traditional SEO and just kind of expanding that to thinking about search intent. So instead of just focusing on keywords, they're asking, what questions is someone actually asking AI when they search? And how do we make sure our content answers those questions in a way that AI bots will surface? And I think that this episode really resonated with a lot of people because we're all feeling this shift happening. We're all trying to figure out how to adapt to a changing search landscape. And Kaylee gave us this really practical roadmap for how she and her team are implementing it in a wealth management firm. The other thing that I really appreciated about this episode was Kaylee said she's a big believer in playing to your strengths. strengths, and I really agree with that. She said content marketing, as in written content, is their strength at Beyond Your Hammock. Video content really isn't their strength. And so they haven't leaned into things like Instagram Reels and TikTok and things like that, which I really appreciated, because I feel like I have heard so much, especially this year, video is the future. If you're not on video, you're going to be obsolete. And while to some extent I understand why people are saying that, at the same time, I don't think it's true. I don't think that everyone has to be on video all the time in order to get clients in 2025 and 2026 and beyond. And so I just really loved this important reminder from Kaylee. You don't have to be everywhere. You don't have to do everything. Figure out what you're actually good at and go all in on that. Okay, number 4 was The Real Reason Financial Advisors Struggle to Grow with John Randall. And this one was actually a 2-parter episode, but only the first part was the fourth listened to episode. I also thought part 2 was really, really good. So if you haven't listened to that one, you absolutely should. So John is the founder of Extraordinary Financial Advisors. He is a former financial advisor himself who sold his business, and now he coaches other advisors. And he shared this really fascinating research about why most advisors struggle to grow, even though they're excellent at what they do. And he really talked about capacity constraints and how advisor businesses are clogged up with too many clients and often the wrong ones. And that really prevents them from getting new clients because they're not doing as good of a job for existing clients as they really want to and as they really could be, since they're overwhelmed. So John shared this stat from the Oxley Institute showing that the fastest growing advisors in the industry get 73% of their new clients from existing client referrals. And he was really clear these advisors aren't doing elaborate referral marketing campaigns. They're not spending a lot of money on, huge client events or anything like that. They're just really, really good at what they do for the right clients. They're really, really referable. And so he introduced in this particular episode his IPO method, which is introduce, position, and offer, which is a natural way to generate referrals without awkward conversations or pushy tactics. And what I really like about John's approach is that it all goes back to client optimization first. You cannot market your way out of serving the wrong clients or being too busy to do excellent work. You really have to do a lot of that culling and pruning first. And so I think that this episode was so popular because it hit home for a lot of advisors. It gave permission to stop just chasing more and more and more clients and really hone in on serving the right clients better first to reduce overwhelm. I think that's a message that every business owner needs to hear at some point as they're trying to grow. Okay, number 3 did not surprise me at all. Number 3 is from 15K to 40K followers, the LinkedIn strategy that's driving real revenue with Mondo Salavanti. I absolutely adore Mondo Salavanti. If you're not connected with him on LinkedIn, you absolutely should be. This was his second appearance on the podcast. When he was here the first time over a year ago, he was one of my very first guests. He already had really incredible traction from LinkedIn. He had been posting every single day for about 600 days straight, and he was getting clients from LinkedIn at that point as well. So both of those episodes are really worth a listen. And I was so excited to have him come back on and give me kind of an update about a year and a half later about how much further even now he was than he was then. So by the time that we recorded this episode, he had grown from around 15,000 to nearly 40,000 LinkedIn followers, and his business revenue had already exceeded 90% of 2024's total by May, which was really exciting. Now, what I do want to point out is this is definitely not just vanity metrics. People can have 40,000 LinkedIn followers, but if those followers aren't turning into clients, what really matters? But Mondo's followers actually really do turn into clients. And he was really transparent about how his strategy has evolved. So he talked about, over time, he's gotten really good at writing middle and bottom of funnel content that generates leads, but he'd kind of lost sight of what got him there, which was top of funnel content that brings new people into your world, which is really, really important to do on an ongoing basis so that you're always growing your potential audience. So he had a period where he had a bit of a course correction and he had to test some new things. And I think what was so valuable about that conversation was that, even when you're seeing success from your efforts and you're seeing the traction that you wanted, you still have to adapt and refine your approach continually in order to stay the course. The other thing that Mondo shared that I thought was kind of a game changer was even though he has 40,000 followers, he doesn't just wait for those followers to reach out to him. He's pretty proactive with them as well. So he has a strategy that whenever somebody views his profile and that person falls into his ideal client profile, he actually sends them a DM, genuinely building relevance, not pitching them right away, but genuinely starting a conversation with them. And that's how he gets a ton of his clients from LinkedIn. So I love, love, love that he has this approach of building this really great organic following. People really do want to hear what he has to say, but then also having that proactive element of sending DMs, but his DMs are not the pitch slaps, like the cold, clearly copy pasted sales DMs that so many of us are used to getting on LinkedIn. And I think that that is just so important for people to realize when he's getting clients from LinkedIn. He's doing a lot of things proactively as well. Okay, episode that came in number 2 most listened to is Why Most Tax Planning Marketing Fails and How to Fix Yours with Stephen Jarvis. And I have to say, I really, really love Stephen. He's the CEO and head CPA of Retirement Tax Services, and he came on to talk about why most advisors really struggle to market their tax planning services effectively. He said there's really an oversaturation of marketing about tax planning, but an undersaturation of actual really good execution on tax planning. And so everyone has kind of picked up on the fact that tax planning is a really great buzzword to put on their website, but there's still a huge gap between the number of advisors who list tax planning somewhere on their website as one of their services and the ones actually doing meaningful work around it. And so advisors who are doing really meaningful work around it can set themselves apart by sharing what are the actual deliverables that we provide for you and what are the outcomes of those. So you really have to share in your content and on your website when you're talking about tax planning, what are clients actually getting? Are you doing a tax projection? Are you coordinating with their CPA? Are you reviewing their tax return with them? Like, what does tax planning actually look like? And that can be much, much more compelling anyways than just saying you do tax planning. I think a lot of people, even high earners, high net worth folks who have really complex equity comp and business strategies and things like that, tax planning can still feel really vague and nebulous, and you may just not know what that includes, or, they may not connect. Does tax planning really help me with this particular situation that I have around taxes? I don't know. And since it's not clearly stated, I might not think to ask that. So I think this episode really resonated because of that. Tax planning is something that a lot of advisors are really excited about. The outcomes for clients are super, super clear and tangible for them as well. But a lot of advisors aren't really talking about it in their marketing in the best way. They know how to do the work, but they don't know how to translate that into marketing language that resonates with prospects. And so I really like that Stephen gave a more clear framework for doing that. All right. And coming in at number 1, I am also not surprised by this one at all because he is so popular. So number 1 was The Economics of Direct Mail Marketing for Advisors with James Pollard. And I have to say that the number of downloads on this one were like miles ahead of the rest of them. Again, I think because James is so popular. And so I was pretty honored when he said yes to be on my podcast. James is the founder of The Advisor Coach. He's a little bit of a controversial figure in our industry because he's not afraid to share really contrarian opinions. He's very no nonsense. And when I brought him on, we ended up talking about something that very few other people are talking about, which is direct mail marketing. So even in 2025, when everyone is focused on social media and AI and all these digital strategies, James made this pretty compelling case for why direct mail is still one of the most effective marketing strategies for financial advisors. He uses direct marketing himself, so he brought the economics. He really broke down exactly why you don't need high response rates to still see highly profitable results using direct mail marketing. He talked about how you can get a tremendous amount of real estate in front of 1,000 people for about $1,000, which you cannot get that kind of sustained attention almost anywhere else. And what I really loved about his approach was that he emphasized the personalization. So he literally showed me his paper folding machine that he uses to fold letters in his office. He talked about how sometimes he'll take a pen and write on the letter, "Hey, I saw that you do this," or "I followed you on LinkedIn last week and loved this." And I think that, you can't always do that completely at scale, but when there are prospects that you are actually kind of excited about connecting with, that's a really great way to stand out in their mailbox. And James made the point, you really can't do that with email as easily. You just can't fake a handwritten note. So I think this episode was number one, not only because James is super popular, but also because he gave us something a little bit unexpected, but completely practical. He gave us a strategy that goes against what most people are doing right now, but he backed it up with economics and real examples. And I think a lot of you probably listened to this and thought, maybe I should actually try this. If you did, I would love to hear from you. I know that he would as well. My husband actually started a custom closets business earlier this year. He has had a couple of businesses throughout the years doing things like handyman work and home remodeling. And so he is going into the custom built-in closet space right now. And as he was editing James's episode for me, because he edits all my episodes, he actually said, I think I actually want to try this with this business. And so hopefully by the end of 2026, once we get our ducks in a row, I will be able to share the results of that with you as well. So those were the top 5 most listened to episodes of the year. Those were the ones that you all seem to gravitate towards the most. Again, number 5 was how to build a content marketing strategy that actually generates clients with Kaylee Roberge. It's a really great behind the scenes look of a content marketing strategy that is in a wealth management firm. Number 4, the real reason financial advisors struggle to grow with John Randall. Number 3, from 15K to 40K followers, the LinkedIn strategy that's driving real revenue with Mondo Salavanti. Number 2, why most tax planning marketing fails and how to fix yours with Stephen Jarvis. And then number 1, the economics of direct mail marketing for advisors with James Pollard. So I want to transition now into my top 5 personal favorites. There was a little bit of overlap between my personal favorites and the top 5, but I did still choose 5 additional personal favorites just because there were so many great conversations that happened over this past year. So again, starting with number 5 was Master the Language of Client Attraction, Communication Strategies That Convert with Derek Kenny. And this conversation was all about the power of language and positioning, especially when you're introducing yourself in person to new people, especially people who could potentially be ideal clients. So Derek is a former 1% financial advisor. He's also an author and speaker. And he talked about how the words we choose matter so much more than we realize, and how small shifts in language can completely change how prospects perceive us. So he has some really practical frameworks about how to move from jargon-heavy language to plain English, and he even considers the words financial advisor to be jargon-heavy. So instead of talking about what you do or what your title is, to naturally shift to talking about the outcomes that clients experience. So you don't really have just generic value anymore, but you have hyper-specific messaging that makes people say, oh, that is exactly what I need. So what stuck with me most from this conversation was Derek's emphasis on storytelling and using client stories and examples to illustrate the value you provide instead of just listing the things that you do or the services that you offer. And what this does is it makes your communication really personal and relatable immediately instead of kind of formal, corporate, and dry. So I'll just give you a quick example before moving on to the next. Instead of saying something like, we offer comprehensive financial planner, or I'm a comprehensive financial planner, you might say, oh, we help couples in their 40s stop arguing about money and actually get on the same page about their financial future. So the first one is kind of generic and forgettable. Any financial advisor could say that. And the other paints a really clear picture and addresses a specific pain point. And so I think this is just a really unique way of looking at your positioning and your messaging, even when you're talking in person at networking events or holiday parties or whatever it might be. This episode's definitely worth a listen. So coming in at number 4 was Beyond SEO, Optimizing for ChatGPT and AI Search Tools with Diana Cabreses. Now, this episode felt really cutting edge and ahead of the curve. Diana came on to talk about this shift that's happening from traditional SEO to what we're calling AEO, Answer Engine Optimization, or GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. So basically, how do we make sure our content shows up when people are asking ChatGPT or Perplexity for recommendations instead of going to Google? Or if they are going to Google, how do we get cited as a source for an AI overview instead of just being obsolete? And Diana wasn't fear-mongering about AI taking over, but she was very practical about the fact that search behavior is changing completely, and we need to adapt as businesses that market online. She talked about how we need to think less about keywords and more about the actual questions that people are asking, and how we need to structure our content in a way that AI bots can easily parse and understand with something called schema markup. And I picked this conversation as one of my favorites because I think it represents where a lot of marketing is heading. And I'm already seeing this play out in the work that I do with clients. When we optimize their blog posts for AEO instead of just traditional SEO, we are seeing better results. And really what AEO does is it just builds on good SEO practices. I saw something on LinkedIn the other day. Someone said, AEO isn't hard if you already have good SEO hygiene. And I really loved that notion of SEO hygiene. If you're already optimizing your content for the Google algorithms, there's not much more that you have to do in order to make it easy for AI search engines to find it, but there are some extra things that you can do, absolutely. So Diana gave a framework for thinking about this shift that felt pretty actionable and not overwhelming. So my third favorite conversation from this year is very similar on the same topic. It's from Keywords to AI, Adapting Your SEO Strategy for the New Search Landscape with Brent Carnduff. And Brent came on to talk about similar themes as Diana, but from a slightly different angle. He focused more on the practical implementation side, like, okay, we know search is changing, but what do we actually do about it? And I think that there's a little bit of a comfort zone that a lot of people are falling into right now, which is, okay, well, no one really knows exactly how to get shown in AI search results, in tools like ChatGPT, or even in AI overviews on Google. So maybe we'll just wait and see. We'll just continue going. And Brent really emphasized the urgency of this. He said, wait and see is not a strategy. And if you're not adapting your SEO strategy right now to include AEO, you might wake up in 6 months or a year and realize that your website traffic has completely dried up, and you're wishing that you would have gotten more serious about it when things were still new and everyone was trying to figure it out. So Brent walked through specific tactics for making your content more AI friendly. Things like adding key takeaways at the top of blog posts, including FAQ sections at the bottom, making sure that your headers directly answer questions that people are asking. All of these things are super simple, but if you're not doing them, then AI is not going to recognize your content as well as it recognizes other people's content who are doing these things. So whenever you are writing content, you want to make sure that you're checking off these boxes. So this episode is definitely worth a listen for that reason. Okay, number 2 for me, how to turn your dormant email list into discovery calls with John Way. This was my second personal favorite, and this conversation was all about email marketing, which I believe is so underutilized in this industry, and yet such a powerful tool for advisors to connect with their social followers and their audience in a much deeper, more consistent way. So John talked about how most advisors either don't have an email list or they have one that they're not really nurturing. Maybe they send out a quarterly newsletter that nobody reads or send up compliance approved market updates, but these feel really generic and boring. And so John and I talked about specific strategies for how to actually use your email list to its ability to generate discovery calls. John really got into the weeds with me about segmentation and personalization. So instead of just blasting the same message to everyone on your list, which is super common, you can actually think about where people are in their journey and what they need to hear from you right now the most in regards to their financial lives, their financial health, and ultimately their financial pain points. Now, you certainly don't need to send daily emails. You don't need super fancy automation sequences. But what you do need is to show up consistently and to provide real value to your subscribers in a way that moves people closer to working with you. And being able to segment your email list so that you can know what's most valuable to different groups is a very, very powerful way to do that. So if you're interested in email marketing or you're already doing email marketing and you just want to amp it up in 2026, I highly, highly, highly recommend this episode. John and I also do live sessions on this once every quarter or so, and we've had really good engagement in those sessions. And so keep your eye out in the new year for when we're doing our next one, where we talk about how you can use assessments and digital scorecards to segment your email list really easily, and also to grow your email list if you use it as a lead magnet. It's a really exciting way to take advantage of the power of an email list. So again, keep your eye out for announcements about that coming in the new year. Now, my final top 5 personal favorite is stop hoping for referrals, build a system that actually works with Nikki Clark. Now, a lot of you know Nikki, some of you don't. Nikki runs a full service marketing agency for financial advisors. And earlier this year, she and I did a poll on LinkedIn asking advisors what they most wanted help with. And by far, the number one thing people said was building a referral engine or having a more systematic way to get referrals from both their clients and their COIs. And I think that this is such an important topic. When I look at the top 5 most listened to episodes, and John Randall's was on there about helping advisors focus on their best clients so that they can get more referrals from them. I think there's kind of a thread here. And so I'm excited to continue talking about referral systems and how to make yourself more referable in 2026. So in our conversation, Nikki and I talked about how referrals are really the lifeblood of any service-based business. But most advisors don't have a strategy or a process for referrals. They're just kind of hoping they'll happen. And so they come in really haphazardly. Nikki really focused on the more touch points you have with clients and COIs, the more referable you become. Every touch point keeps you top of mind and creates value. So an advisor who only does a once a year strategy call or even a twice a year strategy call is not going to be as referable as someone who's creating multiple touch points throughout the year. And so we went ahead and talked about what some of those touch points could look like that wouldn't be super time consuming, wouldn't be adding on extra services that people aren't paying for, but that would be really valuable or meaningful to the clients that you serve and the COIs that you network with. When we talk about referrals, we talk about ways to get more referrals that aren't being pushy or salesy or asking awkwardly, but just about making yourself memorable and really about being someone that people genuinely want to refer because you made them feel seen and valued. So definitely check out that conversation as well. Just as a reminder, my top 5 favorites from my personal standpoint were Master the Language of Client Attraction, Communication Strategies that Convert with Derek Kenny, Beyond SEO, Optimizing for ChatGPT and AI Search Tools with Diana Cabrizas, From Keywords to AI, Adapting Your SEO Strategy for the New Search Landscape with Brent Carnduff, How to Turn Your Dormant Email List into Discovery Calls with John Way, and Stop Hoping for Referrals, Build a System that Actually Works with Nikki Clark. So looking across all 10 of these episodes, I see a couple of common threads. I really see this emphasis on authenticity and showing up as your real self. I think that's going to be so important, not only in the rest of 2025, but in 2026 and beyond, as AI becomes more integrated into our everyday lives, as it becomes more integrated into content, even video content, as people become less trusting of the content that they consume. I think that showing up as your real self and making it very clear how human you are is going to be such a differentiator. I also see this focus on systems and strategy instead of just hoping things will work. We are in such a massive shift right now in how people search for and consume information that we need to have systems in place to ensure that we're being consistent. We know what's working, we know what's not, we can adapt as things change. And finally, I've really seen in my conversations with advisors over the past year that the most successful ones are the ones who are willing to go deep instead of wide. The most successful ones really pick a lane, they master it, and then they leverage that expertise to grow. So as we head into this next year, these are the lessons I'm taking with me. I'm thinking about how to help my clients adapt to AI-powered search. I'm thinking about how to help them build better referral systems, how to use email marketing more effectively, how to segment their email lists, and how to communicate their value in language that actually resonates with prospects. And I'm super, super excited about what's coming next for the Finance Marketing Podcast. I already have some really amazing guests lined up for 2026. I have a few conversations slotted with some existing clients that I'm really excited to share with you. We're going to be diving even deeper into a lot of these topics, and I just can't wait to share those conversations with you. So before I wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you to every guest who shared their time and expertise with me this year. Thank you to every listener who spent time listening this year, everyone who subscribed, who left reviews on Apple Podcasts. That means so much to me. People who reached out with questions or feedback, which several of you did. This podcast podcast only exists because of you, and I am just always so grateful for this community. So if any of these episodes sound interesting and you haven't listened yet, go back and check them out. I will list them all in the show notes. And if you're not already subscribed to my newsletter, I would love for you to join. That's another thing that I started earlier this year. About 6 months ago, I've been sending out a weekly newsletter every single week. I have paused for the rest of 2025. In the last 2 weeks of 2025, I'm not sending out a newsletter because I usually send them out on Thursdays. And so I will start that up again in the first week of January. So if you'd like to join the newsletter, you can sign up in the show notes. You'll get updates on new episodes, plus exclusive content that I only share with my email subscribers, behind the scenes of, what I'm trying in my own business, success stories with clients, things like that. So it's definitely worth being on the list. So I'll be back here next week with a forward-looking episode about what you can expect in 2026 from me and what shifts I'm seeing in the marketing landscape. Until then, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this community. I hope you have an amazing new year, and I will catch you back here in 2026. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Finance Marketing Podcast. If you're eager to market your business in a way that feels good and actually gets results, sign up for the Finance Marketing Podcast newsletter in the show notes so you never miss another episode. If you liked what you heard today, please be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite listening app and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you back here next Friday.